girl Madeleine McCann. The then 3-year-old went missing back in May of 2007 while on holiday with her parents. Police are searching more than 20 plots of land in the area surrounding her last known location. The primary suspect, Christian Brückner, has been linked to a farmhouse in the search vicinity.
Fresh hope for answers. Specialist police teams drove in from Germany. They're leading this operation just a mile from where 3-year-old Madeleine went missing
Madeleine
18
Beth
years
McCann
ago.
was almost 4 years old when the world lost sight of her. She had wide hazel green eyes, a sprinkle of freckles across her nose, and a smile that showed off a tiny gap between her baby teeth. She was bright, independent, a bit cautious for a child her age. She loved stories, especially ones with happy endings, and liked to pretend she was the big sister even though the twins, Sean and Amelie, were barely 2 years younger. She was born on May 12, 2003, in Leicester, England, to Jerry and Kate McCann, both doctors, both high-achieving, both deliberate in nearly everything they did. Their life was neat, organized, and according to plan. Madeleine had been a miracle to them, a child born after years of infertility treatments and longing. When she came, everything changed. And when the twins came later, their family felt complete. They lived in a red brick home in Rothley, a small town with tight fences and quiet streets. They took photos constantly. The children were dressed perfectly, clean collars, matching shoes, brushed hair. But Madeleine was always the star, the one who stared directly at the camera, who tilted her head in a way that made you feel like she saw something no one else did. And then one day, she was gone. The McCanns arrived in Praia da Luz, Portugal, on April 28, 2007. It was a small resort town on the Algarve coast, scenic, slow, framed by golden beaches and whitewashed buildings. It was meant to be the perfect holiday. They were staying at the Ocean Club, a family-friendly resort with tennis courts, swimming pools, a kids' club, and the kind of safety you assume comes with routine. There were 9 adults in the group, the McCanns and their friends, all professionals, mostly doctors. Between them, they had several young children. Their days were spent at the beach or by the pool, the evenings reserved for dinners at the tapas bar within the resort. They did this every night, put the kids to bed, left the apartment doors unlocked, and took turns checking in every 30 minutes that IT had felt safe, close, controlled, until it wasn't. May 3, 2007, started like any other day on that trip. The McCanns ate breakfast with Madeleine and the twins, then dropped the kids off at the resort's child care center. There are photos of Madeleine from that day, her tiny sun hat, her white t-shirt with Eeyore on it, her bare feet in the grass as she played tennis with other children. She looked happy, sun-kissed, alive. That night, at 8:30 p.m., Kate and Jerry put the children to bed in apartment 5A. Madeleine was tucked into the bed closest to the window. The twins were in cots nearby. The shutters were closed. The door was left slightly ajar, the way Madeleine liked it. Jerry kissed her goodnight. Then they left. The tapas bar was just a minute's walk away, roughly 55 meters from their apartment. They couldn't see the flat, but it felt close enough. The parents had arranged a rotation, checking on the kids every 20 to 30 minutes. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry went to check on the children. He entered the apartment through the unlocked patio door. Madeleine was asleep, her breathing slow. The twins were still. Everything seemed fine. At 9:30 p.m., another member of the group, Matthew Oldfield, offered to check in while passing by. He listened for sounds, peeked in, and heard nothing unusual. He didn't enter the room. At 10 p.m., Kate walked back to the apartment for her own check. She opened the patio door, walked into the living room, noticed the bedroom door was wider open than before. She stepped inside, and Madeleine was gone. What followed was a sound the entire resort would never forget. Kate McCann screaming. She ran back to the tapas bar, breathless, face white, shouting, "They've taken her! They've taken her!" It was not phrased as a possibility. Not "Madeleine's gone." Not "I can't find her." But "they've taken her." From the moment of her discovery, it was framed not as a disappearance, but as an abduction. Chaos erupted. Guests poured out of their apartments. Resort staff searched bushes, hallways, dumpsters. People shouted her name into the darkness. Volunteers walked the beach with flashlights. The police were called, but something was already wrong. The first officers arrived at 10:40 p.m. They took notes, asked questions, but there was no sense of urgency. The border wasn't closed. The airport wasn't alerted. No immediate search. Perimeter was established. And the apartment, the last known place Madeleine had been, was not secured. People walked through it, touched things, moved items. The scene was contaminated within minutes. Worse, there was no BOLO, be on the lookout, issued to the public. No Amber Alert. No roadblocks. Hours passed before dogs were called in. The window, small, narrow, above the bed, had no fingerprints. But it had been opened. The shutters, the McCanns insisted, had been jimmied. Madeleine's pink stuffed cuddle cat was still on the bed, but Madeleine was not. What began that night turned into one of the most expensive, extensive, and sensational missing person investigations in modern history. Over the coming days, Portuguese police launched Operação Lillis. Hundreds of leads, dozens of interviews, Interpol notices, but no Madeleine. The public outcry was instant. Newspapers across Europe ran her photo, the now famous one with her big eyes and soft smile. Britain reacted with horror. How could a little girl vanish from her bed while her parents dined nearby? The pressure mounted fast, on the police, on the resort, and eventually on the McCanns themselves. Because as days turned to weeks, and still no sign of Madeleine, suspicion started to shift. By the end of the first week, the story had already spiraled far beyond Praia da Luz. The British press was camped out at the Ocean Club resort. Camera crews lined the sidewalk. Reporters elbowed for angles. Headlines screamed across the UK, "Find Maddie." Taken while they dined, Maddie snatched. Her photo, the close-up with her pink dress, big eyes, and slightly parted lips, became unavoidable. Politicians weighed in. Celebrities donated to the search fund. Pope Benedict XVI met with the McCanns, kissed a photo of Madeleine, and prayed for her return. The world wasn't just watching, it was demanding answers. And yet, there were none. There was no ransom, no trace, no eyewitness, no confirmed abduction. And the local police, the Polícia Judiciária, were struggling. They weren't used to international pressure. Their system was slower, less reactive. British experts were brought in, but cooperation between the two teams was strained from the start. Mistrust festered, and slowly, something began to shift. The longer Madeleine remained missing, the more the McCanns themselves were scrutinized. They were polished. Too composed. Doctors, intelligent, guarded. Kate never cried in public. She clasped her hands tightly, stared ahead. Jerry gave statements like a politician, calm and exact. Their behavior didn't fit the grieving parents' mold the public expected. And in that gap, doubt crept in. Why didn't they take a lie detector test? Why was there no sign of forced entry? Why was the window too small for an abductor to carry a child out? Why did Kate shout, "They've taken her," without looking? Questions turned into whispers. Whispers turned into stories. And then, into suspicion. In July 2007, police brought in British sniffer dogs trained to detect human blood and the scent of cadavers. The dogs were taken into the McCann's apartment and later into their hired Renault Scenic rental car, a vehicle they began using weeks after the disappearance. The dogs reacted inside the bedroom closet, behind the couch in apartment 5A, and again, in the trunk of the McCann's car. The dogs were clear. They had found the scent of a human corpse and traces of blood, but that's when science and theory collided. No DNA results definitively linked the samples to Madeleine. The materials were degraded. Partial matches. Nothing that would stand up in court. Still, Portuguese police moved out on September 7, 2007. Kate and Jerry McCann were officially declared arguidos, formal suspects that TO the world. They had gone from grieving parents to potential murderers. The media circus exploded. Theories multiplied. Some believed Madeleine had died accidentally, a fall, perhaps, and the McCanns had covered it up in panic. Others suggested sedation, that the children had been drugged so the parents could dine, and Madeleine never woke up. Conspiracy theorists dove deeper, accusing the McCanns of dark networks, trafficking rings, organ harvesting, even hints of satanic ritual. The tabloids fed the frenzy. Body found in car. McCann DNA in trunk. Maddie died that night. None of it was confirmed. But once printed, the damage was done. Kate and Jerry fought back. They hired lawyers, spokespeople, PR firms. They launched a defense campaign, raising millions through the Find Madeleine Fund. Billboards, TV interviews, trips to the US, the Vatican, everywhere. They stayed visible, but visibility came with a cost. Public sympathy curdled into doubt. People began questioning the fund's use. The McCanns were accused of profiting, of manipulating the press. They were followed, hounded, harassed. Strangers screamed at them in airports. They had lost a daughter, and now, their names in 2008. Portuguese prosecutors dropped their case against the McCanns. The arguido status was lifted. There was no evidence strong enough to proceed, but the damage was permanent. Even now, more than a decade later, the case remains split in two camps: the abduction theory, the cover-up theory, each with their believers, each with their evidence, each with their blind spots, and Madeleine still missing. For years after the McCanns were cleared as formal suspects, the investigation into Madeleine's disappearance drifted in and out of relevance. Leads dried up. The Portuguese authorities shelved the case. Madeleine's face stayed in the public eye, but the search became a ghost of itself, quiet, fatigued, unresolved. Still, the McCanns refused to stop. Every birthday, they lit a candle. Every year, they released a statement. Jerry returned to work. Kate wrote a memoir. The twins grew up in the shadow of their sister's absence. Her bedroom remained untouched, her toys still in place, her closet still full, and occasionally, the world turned its eyes back to her. Sightings were reported across Europe, North Africa, and even North America. A girl with hazel eyes at a Moroccan petrol station. A small child in a German train station. Another in a shopping mall in Brussels. Each time, hope ignited, and each time, it died just as quickly. All false. There were also the cruel confessions. A man in Belgium claimed responsibility. Another in Poland. Some were mentally ill. Some were seeking attention. Others were cruel beyond comprehension. One prisoner even claimed to know where her body was and drew a map. It led to nothing. By 2011, the McCanns appealed directly to the UK government. Public pressure mounted. Prime Minister David Cameron authorized the Metropolitan Police to begin their own review, Operation Grange. This wasn't just a reinvestigation, it was a start from zero effort. Detectives combed through 40,000 pieces of information, interviewed hundreds of witnesses, and built timelines down to the minute. They considered all theories, including the possibility that Madeleine had wandered off and died accidentally. But as they worked, a new picture began to form. One that pointed, once again, to abduction, and eventually, to a man whose name had once been buried in a long-forgotten police report. Christian Brückner, a German drifter. Convicted rapist. Pedophile. Career criminal. He had lived in the Algarve in 2007, less than 5 miles from Praia da Luz. He drove a yellow and white VW camper van. He had a string of violent offenses, including the rape of a 72-year-old woman. In Portugal just 2 years before Madeleine disappeared, but it wasn't just his record that raised flags. It was the timeline. Cell phone data placed him near the Ocean Club on the night of May 3, 2007, within the window of Madeleine's disappearance. And even more chilling, just 1 hour before Madeleine was reported missing, his phone received a 30-minute call, one that pinged off a tower near the McCann's apartment. Investigators began to build a profile. Brückner had a history of breaking into vacation homes. He was known to use disguises. He had been investigated for other child abuse cases in Germany. He lived off-grid, moved often, and when police seized one of his old properties, they found hundreds of images of child sexual abuse. He didn't just fit the profile. He was the profile. In 2020, the German Federal Criminal Police, BKA, made a stunning announcement. Christian Brückner was now the prime suspect in the disappearance and presumed murder of Madeleine McCann. They didn't just suspect foul play. They said plainly, "We believe Madeleine is dead." It was the first time a law enforcement agency had made such a declaration. They began building a case, quietly, methodically, while Brückner sat in a German prison serving time for a separate rape. Publicly, the details were vague. Prosecutors said they had concrete evidence, but no body, no murder weapon, no confession. Still, it was the closest the case had come to resolution in over a decade. The McCanns issued a statement. "We still believe Madeleine is alive until we see evidence to the contrary. But we welcome any development that brings us closer to the truth. They didn't say Hope was dead, but they didn't say it was alive either. Christian Brückner has denied involvement. Through his lawyer, he called the accusations absurd. No charges have been filed in connection with Madeleine. Not yet, but the case is ongoing. In May 2023, authorities conducted a 3-day search near the Arrade Dam in Portugal based on Brückner's known movements. They recovered items, clothing, bags, possibly fabric, but results remain sealed. Madeleine's DNA was not found. Still, investigators believe the answers may finally be within reach. And yet, the mystery remains: no eyewitness ever saw Madeleine being taken. No forensic evidence has definitively placed Brückner at the scene. No body has ever been found, just questions and silence. In the years since that night in May 2007, time has moved forward in the world. But not for everyone. For the McCanns, time has become elastic, stretching and snapping, filled with milestones they never wanted. The first Christmas without her. The birthdays. The 10th anniversary. The day Madeleine would have started high school. The day she would have turned 18. Each one passed without her. Kate McCann once described it as living in a freezer while the rest of the world keeps moving. She stopped working. She stopped answering questions. And for a long while, she stopped breathing in any normal way. Grief, for her, was not loud. It was clinical, silent, heavy, a diagnosis with no treatment. Jerry returned to work in medicine. He tried to keep the family together, tried to give the twins a life outside the shadow of a missing sister. But every time they smiled, they felt her absence more. Every family trip, every normal day. It was always 3, not 4 they kept. Her room, left it as it was. Cuddle cat on the pillow, books on the shelf, a small gap in the closet, waiting for a backpack that would never come back. And then there was the public, the billions of eyes that had watched their grief, judged it, dissected it. Some still believed they were responsible, accused them of staging it all, faking pain, cashing in. Others believed they were victims of unimaginable cruelty, victims of a predator, of a system, of the randomness that turns vacations into lifetimes of pain. The McCanns no longer care what anyone believes. They care about one thing: to Madeleine. As of now, Madeleine Beth McCann is still listed as a missing person. There is no confirmed death, no confirmed crime scene, no confirmed timeline beyond what has been painfully reconstructed through surveillance, conflicting testimony, and circumstantial evidence. What is known is this: she was alive at 8:30 p.m. on May 3, 2007. She was gone by 10 p.m. She has never been seen since. She was a child with a book tucked beside her bed. A child who loved stories, who played with her siblings, who asked questions and liked soft toys and sometimes didn't finish her piece. She was a child who should have had an ordinary life, and someone took that from her. Today, Madeleine's case. Lives in History.it is the most widely reported missing child case in modern memory. It has involved police from 4 countries, generated over 8,000 potential sightings, and cost over £13 million in public and private funding. It has been the subject of documentaries, podcasts, YouTube exposés, books, TikTok deep dives, Reddit investigations. Every year, it resurfaces, in theories, in hope, in sorrow, but none of it has brought her home. The legacy, though, remains. Because of Madeleine, countless holiday resorts in Europe changed their security protocols. Parents traveling abroad became more alert. Law enforcement agencies improved cross-border coordination. The Amber Alert system was adopted across multiple EU states. Her face, those wide eyes, that warm smile, has become a symbol of both innocence and the horror of uncertainty. And her story? It remains incomplete. A page forever dog-eared, never turned. Kate McCann once said in an interview, "The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence." We will never give up on Madeleine. Ever. Every May 3rd, they light a candle. Not in mourning, but in waiting. And in Rothley, England, a small stone bears her name. Not a gravestone. Not a monument. Just a plaque. Just a hope. Just a reminder that somewhere, maybe still out there, is a little girl who was taken from her bed and whose name still breaks the silence. Madeleine.